The city of Silverridge sparkled like glass under the morning sun. It was a coastal jewel where the rich came to feel the breeze and forget their burdens. The streets were clean, the palm trees well trimmed, and the sky looked like a painting made for royalty. From the hillside villas to the gold-plated shops that lined the marina, Silverridge was a place where power dressed in silence and money walked in soft footsteps. In the heart of this quiet storm lived Raven Ndene. She was not born into wealth. No, her name had once echoed through the narrow alleys of Makiba, a sun-drenched slum miles away, where metal rooftops danced with heat and children bathed in buckets under the open sky. In Makiba, dreams were not planted. They were chased, caught, and dragged into the light. And Raven, she had done just that. By the time she turned 30, Raven had turned her name into a brand. Real estate, tech, beauty exports, anything that needed vision, she gave it. She was sharp, quiet, and always 2 steps ahead. People didn't just admire her. They feared disappointing her. Her empire didn't rest on family wealth or political favors. It stood on sleepless nights, denied loans, and a fire that refused to go out. But today wasn't about power. It was about peace. Raven had spent months planning this one day. She had postponed meetings, ignored calls, and moved heaven and earth to make it happen. Her private yacht, Imani, floated like a queen at the edge of the harbor. Not too loud, not too proud, just powerful. It was her safe place, her floating kingdom. She arrived early that morning, dressed in a flowing white linen wrap, her locks tied into a golden scarf. The sun kissed her skin as the sea breeze wrapped around her like an old friend. The pier smelled of salt and fresh oil paint. Her sandals tapped softly as she walked up the wooden ramp to the deck. Crew members greeted her with practiced smiles and respectful bows. "Welcome back, Ms. Ndene," one of them said, handing her a chilled ginger drink garnished with mint. She smiled back gently. The deck was spotless. The leather lounges gleamed. The sails were tucked, the ropes tight, the engine humming in a low purr beneath her feet. The water below shimmered with peace. Waves lapped gently, as if whispering secrets to the hull. Birds flew low, and in the distance, the silver outline of Silverridge faded into mist. Raven exhaled slowly. No boardrooms, no interviews, no deals. Just her and the sea. She made her way to the top deck where a wide cushioned bench overlooked the endless blue. She sat, lifted the glass to her lips, and sipped. The taste was sharp and cool like the mornings of her childhood. She leaned back, her eyes half closed, soaking in the rhythm of the water, the sun on her skin, the soft rustling of the sails above. For the first time in weeks, she felt human. Then a shadow crossed her face. It was small at first. Just movement. Soft footsteps approaching from behind. She thought it was a steward coming with fruit or towels. But the air had shifted. The warmth on her face cooled slightly. She opened her eyes. A young man in a crisp white uniform stood at the edge of the stairs, his hands clasped too tightly behind his back. He looked nervous, like someone about to deliver bad news. "Excuse me, ma'am," he said carefully. You can't be up here." Raven blinked. At first, she thought she'd misheard. Maybe he meant someone else. Maybe it was a new crew member who hadn't seen her face yet. She sat up slowly, setting her drink down. "What did you say?" she asked, her voice calm, puzzled. The young man swallowed. "You're not permitted in this section," she chuckled lightly. "This is my yacht." But the man didn't laugh. He didn't even smile. And then 2 more. Crew members appeared, one older woman with a tablet in hand and a tall security guard in black sunglasses. They moved like a wave of cold water, slow and firm. "Ms. Ndene," the woman began, "I'm afraid you've been Removed from access. Removed? Raven repeated, frowning. From my own vessel? The security guard stepped closer. I'm going to need you to come with us, ma'am, he said quietly, but with no softness in his tone. Now. Raven's breath hitched. She looked around, searching for one familiar face. But the rest of the crew avoided her eyes, suddenly very busy adjusting ropes or polishing rails that didn't need polishing. What is this? She asked, standing up. Her voice shook, not from fear, but disbelief. Is this some kind of prank? Some rehearsal for a security drill? No one answered. Is my captain on board? She asked sharply. Get me Captain Tinash. The woman with the tablet avoided her gaze. We've been instructed not to contact him directly. Raven's eyes narrowed. By who? Again, silence. She turned to the security guard. Do you know who I am? I'm the owner of this yacht. You are working on my boat. You answer to me. The man's jaw tightened. Ma'am, please. Let's not make this harder than it needs to be. Raven laughed bitterly. You think I'm making this hard? Her heart pounded. She had sailed on Imani countless times. Every chair had been chosen by her. Every scent, every wood panel, every dish served in that kitchen bore her touch. This was her refuge, her joy, her reward for everything she had endured. And now she was being treated like a stranger. No, 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 she muttered, backing away from them. This is a mistake. Someone has confused the records. Call your supervisor. Call the port authority. Call someone. But the young man from before stepped forward, reading from a small note in his hand. We were instructed to escort you off immediately. You have no authorized presence on the manifest. Raven stood frozen. No presence, she echoed. Her knees weakened, the paper, the tone, the way they wouldn't meet her eyes. This wasn't a mistake. It was planned. Cold panic spread across her chest. She grabbed her phone, but it had no signal, no bars, no data. She looked around, realizing they were already far from shore. Silverridge's skyline was just a blur in the haze. She was already at sea. Her voice dropped low. I need to speak to whoever gave this order, now! But again, silence. She could feel her blood rush to her head, her fingers trembling. If someone thinks they can steal what I built, what I bled for, they don't know who they're playing with. The security guard moved closer. Ma'am, please. Raven stared at them, these strangers in her kingdom. Then she whispered, mostly to herself, someone did this on purpose. No one argued. Something deep inside Raven had begun to whisper. It wasn't the sea, or the wind, or the quiet stares from the crew. It was that part of the soul that wakes up when danger enters softly, wearing a smile. She could feel it now. The stillness around her wasn't peace. It was fear. A fear that hung in the eyes of everyone on board. Not a single crew member would look her in the eye, not even the ones she'd given bonuses to last season. Their shoulders were tight, their steps too quick. And that's when Raven knew. They were hiding something. Her hands trembled slightly, not from weakness, but from the tension crawling under her skin. Her yacht, her floating home, now felt like a place she didn't recognize. The soft hum of the engines felt louder. The sunlight felt fake. She stepped backward slowly, her sandals tapping the polished floor like warning drums. Then it happened. A voice, deep, steady, and familiar. Is there a problem here? Raven spun around, and her heart jumped into her throat. Standing at the top of the deck stairs was Captain Bako. He was tall, dark-skinned, with streaks of gray in his beard. His navy blue cap sat straight on his head, and his hands rested calmly behind his back. For years, he had been her pillar at sea, calm in storms, fierce in emergencies. The only man who had ever steered Imani like it was his. own heartbeat. But now, something was different. There was no smile on his face, no welcome in his eyes, just a strange coldness that pierced right through her chest. The crew straightened immediately at the sight of him. Some even looked relieved. Raven, however, felt her stomach twist. Captain Bako had always made her feel safe, but this Captain Bako, this man now, felt like a stranger. "Captain," Raven said, her voice cracking just slightly. "Please tell me what's going on. Why are they acting like I don't belong here? Why am I being asked to leave my own yacht?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he walked toward her. Slow, deliberate steps. Each one felt like a drumbeat of dread. When he stopped just a few feet away, the silence between them stretched like a rope ready to snap. Finally, he sighed and looked toward the guard. "Let her speak," he said. "Lower your hands." The guard stepped back but didn't relax. Captain Bako turned his gaze back to Raven. His face was unreadable. His voice, when it came, was calm, but too calm, like someone rehearsing sorrow. "Raven," he began, "I'm afraid I've been instructed to make sure you leave the vessel." The words landed like a slap. "What?" she breathed. "I've been given new orders," he said quietly. "This yacht is no longer under your name." Her eyes widened. "What are you talking about?" she whispered. "I own this yacht. I paid for it. Every bolt, every pillow, every single screw." Bako lowered his eyes. "I know," he said. "I know what this means to you. But the truth is, it has been sold." Raven's mouth opened, but no sound came out. "Sold? Her?" She shook her head, refusing to believe. "No, that's impossible. I never sold this yacht. I would never—" But her voice faded as she noticed something, tucked into Bako's breast. Pocket was a small, folded letter. Its golden crest shone in the sun like a knife in her ribs. She recognized it immediately. The Ahosi Group, a powerful, shadowy corporate empire known for swallowing up resorts, islands, and private companies across the continent. She had crossed paths with them before, once in Lagos, again in Senegal. They had offered to merge with one of her businesses. She had said no. Now here they were. On her ship. She pointed at the envelope, her voice rising. "They're behind this?" Captain Bako's jaw tightened. His eyes flickered with guilt. Raven stepped closer, her voice shaking. "You let them do this?" "I didn't have a choice," he murmured. "There's always a choice," she snapped. "I didn't want to be the one to tell you," he said. "They offered me a contract I couldn't refuse. They promised security for my family. They said you would be notified after the transition." "Transition?" she repeated. "You mean theft?" He didn't answer. She was shaking now, not from fear, but from fury. Her knees nearly buckled as the reality began to settle in. Someone, somehow, had stolen her yacht. Not by force, not with violence, but with paperwork, behind her back. She had worked for years to build her empire. She had read every contract, approved every transaction. How could this have happened? Her voice dropped low again. "I want to see the documents." "I don't have access to them," he said. "They didn't share those with me." She looked around at the staff. "Did anyone here know?" No one responded. The wind suddenly picked up, catching her wrap, and tossing her scarf across her shoulder. But Raven didn't move to fix it. She felt cold. She had known betrayal before, from partners, from rivals. But never from someone like Captain Bako, never from the crew she fed, clothed, and trusted. "You should have told me," she whispered. Bako looked away. "You should have stood by me." Still nothing. Raven's breathing was heavy now, her chest rising and falling like a drum of war. The deck beneath her feet didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a courtroom. She was no longer a queen aboard her ship. She was a trespasser. Her voice broke again. "They took it. Without even looking me in the eye." Captain Baco finally looked at her. "I'm sorry," he said. But she wasn't listening anymore. She was remembering. Every sleepless night. Every deal she fought for. Every time she had sailed this yacht alone, smiling into the horizon and whispering, "I did it." Now it had all been taken with a quiet signature. She stared out toward the water. The horizon felt farther away than ever before. Then something in her eyes changed. For a moment, everything froze. The sky still looked blue, the water still sparkled, and the deck of the yacht still shone with fresh polish. But inside Raven, it was chaos. Her heart pounded like a war drum. Her breath came in shallow bursts. The truth had landed like a slap she never saw coming. This wasn't just about the yacht. This was about control. For the first time in years, Raven felt like she wasn't in charge, not of her business, not of her choices, not even of her life. It was as if someone had pulled the strings from the shadows, and she'd only now realized she was a puppet. But she wouldn't stay one. Raven closed her eyes briefly. When she opened them again, something had changed. The fear was gone. The confusion, the shock, the heartbreak, they had hardened into something stronger, something sharper, a fire, long buried under calm speeches and quiet strength, now roared awake. Her voice was soft but firm. "I'll get it back," she said, staring at Captain Baco. "Everything they took." Baco swallowed hard but said nothing. "I'll take back what's mine." That was her promise, not just to herself, but to the entire ocean listening. She stood taller, her body no longer shaking. The betrayal was real, yes, but it was also fuel. Raven turned to the stunned crew. "Get me in touch with the Ahosi group," she ordered. "Now!" Captain Baco hesitated. She could see the war in his eyes. Guilt, regret, but also fear. Still, he reached into his coat and pulled out a sleek black phone. It looked like a weapon in his hands. He typed slowly like a man pressing the numbers of a curse. Then he handed it to her. Raven took the phone, her fingers steady. The line rang once, then again. And then, a voice answered. "This is Victor." "Hail," the man said, smooth as silk, but cold as a snake. "To whom am I speaking?" Raven's teeth clenched. She knew that voice. She remembered the last time she'd heard it, across a long boardroom table when she'd refused his offer to buy one of her hotels in Zanzibar. "Raven and Ndene," she replied, her voice sharp. "And I'm not going anywhere until I get answers." There was a long pause on the other end. Then a chuckle, soft, mocking. "You're a bold one, Raven," Victor said. "But boldness won't change reality. The yacht no longer belongs to you. We finalized the transfer last week." "No," she snapped. "You didn't. I never sold it. I never agreed to anything." "Ah," Victor said lazily. "It's not always about what you agree to. Sometimes it's about power, position, influence, something you clearly don't understand." Raven's eyes narrowed, his tone, his arrogance. It wasn't just business, it was personal. "You think this is about paperwork?" she hissed. "You think you can just take what I bled for and walk away clean?" "People like you," Victor said calmly. "You build things. And people like me, we collect them." That did it. Something in her snapped. "You think this is over?" Raven growled. "You think I'm going to stand here and let you rob me? I will bury every contract you forged, expose every partner you bribed, and burn your empire from the ground up." But before she could say another word, another voice cut through the air, a voice she never expected to hear again. "Raven, stop! Her chest seized. Her breath caught. She turned around so fast the scarf on her shoulders slipped off. Standing at the far end of the deck, leaning against the railing like he belonged. There was a man she once loved beyond words. Blake, her ex-husband. The man who once walked beside her through every storm. Raven staggered back a step. Her vision blurred. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice breaking. He walked forward slowly. His face was calm, his eyes unreadable. "I'm the one who signed the papers," Blake said quietly. Her world shattered. The sound of the ocean vanished. The wind died. All she could hear was the blood rushing in her ears. "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "You didn't." "I did," he said. "But why?" Her voice was barely more than breath. "Why would you?" Blake's hands trembled. "Because they threatened everything, Raven. Everything you built. They said if I didn't cooperate, they'd destroy it all. Your company, your name, everything." Tears welled in her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. "You thought you were protecting me," she said bitterly, "by stabbing me in the back? I didn't want to see you lose everything," he said. "I thought I could shield you from it, take the hit myself." "You don't get to decide that," she yelled. "You don't get to play hero in a war you started behind my back." He looked down, ashamed. "I thought I was doing the right thing." Raven stepped forward, fire in her eyes. "You don't get to say that. You don't get to stand here and pretend this was noble. You didn't save me. You sold me." Blake's lips trembled. "I'm sorry." "No, you're not," she said. "You're just sorry you got caught." He opened his mouth to respond, but she raised her hand. "Don't," she said. "Don't speak another word." The pain in her chest was unbearable. This was the man who had held her through grief, who once swore to protect her dreams like they were his own, and now he had handed them to her enemies. She wanted to scream. She wanted to crumble, but she didn't. Raven's heart beat hard in her chest, but it wasn't from sadness anymore. It was from fury, and underneath that fury, purpose. She stepped away from the railing. Her back was straight, her chin high. The pain hadn't left, but it had found direction. Raven turned to Captain Bako, her voice like cold iron. "I want every name, every document, every detail you know about the Ahosi group," she said. "I want their partners, their silent investors, their fronts, their shell companies, everything." He blinked, unsure. "Raven, they're dangerous." "I know," she said. "That's why I'm not going to whisper." Captain Bako hesitated, caught between fear and duty. But when he saw the fire in her eyes, the one that had once built an empire from nothing, he gave a slow nod. "I'll give you what I know." Raven nodded. "Good." She turned back to Blake. "You've done enough," she said, voice cutting like glass. "And don't think you'll walk away untouched. There are consequences to betrayal. You'll feel yours." He didn't argue. He just stood there, empty, hollow, a man who had already lost the only woman who ever truly saw him. Raven walked away. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She planned. Over the next few days, Raven moved like a ghost with a sword. She disappeared from the public eye. No interviews, no updates, no social media posts. While the world speculated, Raven was watching, listening, and digging. With Captain Bako's help, she unearthed files, hidden contracts, private offshore accounts, strange wire transfers, and shell companies registered under fake names. But it wasn't just paperwork. It was a map of corruption. The Ahosi group wasn't just big. It was global. They had bought out resorts in Tanzania, private airstrips in Mauritius, tech firms in Ghana, and fishing ports in Madagascar. Politicians had been paid off. Judges had been silenced. And worst of all, powerful people had been tricked into selling their businesses without knowing. Just like her. But Raven hadn't just found money trails. She found proof. Proof that Victor Hale, the CEO of the Ahosi Group, the man who mocked her over the phone, was stealing from his own company. Millions were hidden in private accounts. Lavish trips, bribes to foreign officials, and real estate under the names of mistresses and cousins. It was rot, and she had the keys to the vault. Raven sat in her home office, staring at the glowing laptop screen. The files she had collected sat neatly in folders, digital and physical. Her fingers hovered over the mouse, then clicked. She drafted a single email. With a single click, she had sent the storm rolling across the world. Evidence of corruption, embezzlement, bribery, and backdoor dealings tied to the Ahosi Group. Screenshots, signed contracts, forged documents, and secret recordings. She gave the world not just a spark, but a wildfire, and the world responded. Every major news outlet ran the story. Ahosi Group CEO exposed in billion-dollar fraud scheme. Victor Hale under criminal investigation. Whistleblower businesswoman. Brings empire to its knees. On television, on phones, in newspapers, Raven's name was everywhere. Not as a victim, not as someone who was tricked, but as a force no one saw coming. Stock prices fell like rain in a drought. Banks froze accounts. High-ranking Ahosi executives vanished. Their offices were raided. Politicians began to deny affiliations. The once invincible corporation was crumbling, and at the center of it all stood the woman they thought they could. Silence. But Raven wasn't done. She still had one more move. While the Ahosi Group stumbled under global scrutiny, Raven made her real play. Quietly, strategically. She worked with powerful investors, some of whom had also been targeted in the past by the same ruthless firm. These allies didn't just believe her. They were ready. With the chaos in Ahosi's books, Raven began buying back their shares. They were cheap now. Everyone was fleeing. But Raven moved fast, seizing a sizable portion of the company in mere days. And just like that, she had a seat at the table again. Not as a guest, but as a shareholder with power. She didn't ask to be let in. She walked into the boardroom wearing a fitted charcoal suit, head held high, every step echoing through the marble floors like a war drum. Men who once dismissed her looked away. The women in the room straightened in their chairs. She didn't waste time with greetings. Raven laid down the documents, paper proof of Victor Hale's crimes, embezzlement, money laundering, bribery, offshore bank trails, everything. The room was dead silent. Within an hour, the board voted. Victor Hale was removed from his position as CEO. And Raven? She stood tall at the press conference that followed, cameras flashing like lightning all around her. Her voice was calm, clear, sharp as a blade. "They thought they could take everything from me," she said. "They took my yacht, my name, my power. But what they didn't know was that I don't need walls or gold to be powerful. I only need my voice. And now that I've spoken, there's no going back." She paused, then added, "I have reclaimed everything they stole. The yacht, the business, the dignity. And I did it without blood, without fire, without fear. I did it with truth." The room erupted in applause. The journalists looked stunned, some even teared up. And the world? It watched as Raven reclaimed her throne. A week later, the ocean was calm again. The storm had passed, but Raven hadn't forgotten. A single wave. She stood once more on the deck of Imani, her yacht, now flying her personal crest once again. The gold and white flag waved high in the sea breeze, proud and unshaken. The sun was setting behind her, casting the sky in deep orange and purple. It was quiet, just the soft sounds of waves and gulls. Captain Bacco stood respectfully at a distance. No apologies now, just quiet loyalty. Raven leaned on the railing, her eyes scanning the water ahead. She had won, but it didn't feel like pride. It felt like peace, true peace, the kind you only earn after you've been broken, burned, and rebuilt. The yacht was just a symbol. A beautiful one, yes. But it was never about the deck or the sails or the engine. It was about what it represented, her independence, her legacy, her journey, and now it was back in her hands. Raven sat alone near the bow, the sky darkening behind her. She held a warm cup of ginger tea between her palms, the smell rising in quiet spirals. Her thoughts drifted, not to the headlines or the money, but to the deeper things. To the nights she cried in silence after the betrayal. To the moments she doubted if she had the strength to fight. To the betrayal of Blake. He hadn't come back, and she didn't go looking. She had loved him once, truly, deeply. But love that doesn't stand beside you in the fire is not love worth carrying forward. She forgave him in her heart, but she left him in her past. What she had gained was far greater. She had rediscovered herself, not the perfect version, the real one. The one who could fall and still rise. The one who could lose everything and still choose to fight. The one who could be both gentle and fierce. As the stars appeared one by one above her, Raven whispered to herself, "They tried to drown me, but I am not made of wood. I am the sea." She smiled, tears finally slipping down her cheeks, not from sorrow, but from release. This chapter was closed. But the story of her life was just beginning. She turned, walking toward the cabin with a calm strength in her step. The sea no longer frightened her, because she was the storm now. True power isn't found in what you own, it's found in what you rise from. If Raven's journey moved you, don't forget to hit that like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more powerful stories of courage, betrayal, and unstoppable strength.